Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar on alerts and permissions within the system. I still have a few people just trickling in, so I'm going to give the 1-minute warning, give everyone another couple minutes to get in, and then we'll get started. Thanks. My name is Sophia Wilson, and I am a part of the customer success team here at Function Point. I am joined by my lovely colleague, Yelena, today to talk to you about alerts and permissions within Function Point. Yelena, I'm going to start by just checking in. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, Sophia, and hello, everybody. It's good to see you here.
I know I don't get to do webinars with you that often, Yelena, so it's always fun when I get you online. Okay, great. So Yelena is one of our technical support advocates here at Function Point. I'm sure anyone that is on the line talks to her regularly and knows that she can usually answer your questions. So that's she's going to be answering all your questions in the back end of the system today as we go through our topic. So a little bit of an idea of our agenda today. What I really want to do is review the difference between sets versus kind of just floater alerts and permissions within the system. There is functionality within Function Point to allow you to actually differentiate and create sets so that you can put people on similar functions of permissions as well as alerts. And it is really handy and useful. So we're going to walk through the differences between that. Then I'm going to go through some tips and tricks. It's kind of what I've done is actually collected some of our top questions that we get through the support queue as well as while we are on our onboarding sessions, just to make sure that you're kind of aware of some regularly asked things and maybe some items that you haven't actually thought about yet while looking at people's permissions. As we're kind of going through this, do not hesitate to, again, reach out, ask Yelena questions as we go through. However, of course, permissions, I'm sure everyone's very familiar. They are quite robust. So if there's anything kind of very specific to you and your agency and your workflow, and maybe what we need more for your end users or end users with a little bit more functionality, we might need to dig into that specifically. So if for some reason we can't answer your questions today, don't worry, we will. We definitely will. And then we're going to go through alerts. So alerts themselves, again, the differences between the sets and not being in a set, as well as some ways that we can sort of filter them down so that people don't get overwhelmed with the number of alerts coming in, because I know that certainly happens frequently. Again, questions, let's chat. Yelena is answering everything in the back end as we're going through this today. I will also be checking in with her periodically as we go through in case there's anything that we should actually tackle on screen that the rest of the group that is listening may also want the answer to, but not realizing that is a question that should be asked at that point. So we'll be checking in with her. She'll be answering frantically in the back. Don't hesitate to send that through. And again, of course, if, say, tonight after you've really thought about this webinar again, and you have a question that pops up, never hesitate to reach out to our success team at success@functionpoint.com. They're here for all of kind of your training and workflow related needs. Next thing, we have lots of other tools that are available to you to help with your learning of Function Point. I'll point out where that lives in the system once we dive into there. It really is super useful, and there unfortunately are office hours here at Function Point, so we're not available 24/7. So if you are ever in a situation like that where you're unable to get a hold of somebody, there is lots of documentation. We actually pride ourselves in the amount of work that we put into those that are available. So I will point those out to you as well. Our next sessions, this is actually the end of this webinar series. This is the last topic that we're talking about in this most recent series that we've put on. We will be having another one coming soon. We tend to wait 4 to 6 weeks until we launch the next round. But if there are any topics that you feel we haven't touched on or that you think would just be really great for us to touch on in our next round, we would love to hear them. You know, we've been going through a lot of these topics for a number of years now, and we're always looking for ways to spice it up, and, as well as new things that are coming in. You know, a lot of the new features that we've recently released, those will be obviously added in, but please, 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 if there's anything you'd like to see, either shoot it through that questions box to Yelena right now, or again, don't ever hesitate to reach out to our success team at success@functionpoint.com so that we can hear those ideas. Awesome. So let's dive into the system. Yelena, I'm just going to check in with you. Are you able to see my screen? It should be my function point demo system.
Oh yes, I can see everything properly and hear you loud and clear. Let's begin.
Love it. That's great. Okay. So again, what I had mentioned before is really the big thing. Actually, you know what? Sorry. Before we dive into that, I'm going to just point out where those help centers are for you. So when you come into Function Point, you're going to notice this information icon up here. Through here, you're going to notice a couple of options. First being our Help Center, and the second being our Submit an Idea. So the Help Center is all of the training documentation and other resources that we have compiled together for your use. First, we have our Function Point library. I think of this as a bit of an encyclopedia. We literally have documentation with step-by-step, as well as screenshots available to you at any point on any of the different modules. So that is all available and organized based off the different modules for you. We also have our crash courses. So based off of what your functionality is within the agency or your job, we have organized a few that could be useful for you based off of that. I also mentioned how we've recently released some new functionality, including our BI reporting. So anytime that we release some of that, you can see that in our documentation on latest product enhancements. And then, of course, our webinars. I'm sure you're familiar with this since all of you actually joined us today, which is great. But we have all of our FP product-related webinars. You can watch any of our historical ones on demand or register for upcoming ones as you choose to as well. The other item up here is Submit an Idea. So if there's anything that you just really feel Function Point would really benefit from building into our system, you can submit those ideas directly to our product team. They love hearing directly from our customer base. It just helps them in asking questions and digging in and really understanding what it is that you are looking for, so that they can really help to develop the product to not only help yourselves, but of course help the rest of our customers that are also using Function Point. So please, please, please submit all of those. You know, every once in a while, I always recommend going in, even with a glass of wine, and go ahead and vote on some other ones as well, because you know, definitely as we all vote and continue to contribute, it's only going to help you know, our product team know what's really the most important to everybody. Great. Okay, now to actually get started on the topic that we wanted to talk about today. So with the permissions, that's where we're going to start today. And again, really sort of talking about the difference between sets as well as separate permissions. So you, at any point in the system, have the ability to adjust or manipulate an individual's permissions to better suit their needs. Now, what we do find is really helpful, though, is creating a set. So when you create sets, it allows you to actually assign that to multiple individuals that maybe have the same function within your agency. So to create sets, what we're going to be able to do is come up to admin. So you will need to make sure that you have admin permissions to be able to come in and do a lot of these things. But you would just come through admin, rate and staff management, and permission sets. In here, this is where you're going to be able to load and also create new permissions from scratch. So it's an easy three-step process. First of all, it would be choosing the permission set. So you can either choose to create a new one, or you're going to be able to choose from any pre-created ones as well. Now, I am in my demo system, so this is probably a few more options than you're seeing on your side right now. However, when you do first join with Function Point, we do create a few default settings just so that you can kind of start to get an idea on what permissions you may be interested in. We have built those default settings based off of, again, just our experience working with agencies and what are the most commonly requested permission sets based off of roles or functionalities within your agency. So within here, again, lots of different options, and we have labeled them, again, based off of roles. You can label them however you wish, name them in whatever way works best with your terminology within your agency. I have found that probably the most common, though, is basing it off of roles or what their job functions are. So what we could do is we could come into any of these. I'm going to click into Account Executive. You would click Select. You'll now notice that this has populated, and where you're going to be able to start seeing some changes are within the different options over here. You'll be able to see anything blank. They just have no options with that. Underneath companies, with the full check, that just means they have all permissions. And of course, you can come in here and expand and really take a look at everything. Now, again, I'm sure you're familiar. Our permissions are very robust. However, once you have decided to give a team member something, it will give them everything. So if you allow them to add jobs, they will be able to, add companies, they will be able to add as many companies as they want at any time. There's no limiting that. It would just be giving them that ability. But of course, you can always make the decision that although they're allowed to add them, they're not allowed to delete them or update them. So there's lots of kind of workings that we can make around a lot of those sorts of things for you. Now, some of our most commonly asked questions, or actually no, first I'm going to start by showing you something else. So I'm going to come into this permission set because there is an individual that I have created today. What you're going to notice is now that we've chosen that permission set, we're taking a look at that permission set, and then we're actually able to see who is on that permission set. So based off of everything but AE, this is giving them all of the permissions except for they're not going to show up in that account executive dropdown throughout the system. And I'm going to show you an example of that in just a minute, but we can now also see everyone who has actually a fair bit of flexibility within the system and visibility into what is happening within the agency, which is really great. I am definitely a huge advocate for, the more transparency you can do within your agency, the better. Obviously, there's some things that we always support kind of withholding, including salary and wage information, and I will be reviewing that in just a minute as well. Now, say, for example, I have someone like Roger So, and I know that there are just a couple of changes I would want to make to his permissions. I want him to be an AE here in the system. Now, again, I could choose to either go and choose the full permission set, and I can select that, and I can easily just choose his name, and I can update this so that now he has a different permission set that is actually applied to him. You can see saved successfully. But maybe I'm actually just doing it in a bit of a different workflow. I'm coming underneath the contact himself. So you can choose to find contact or view contact. I'm just going to go ahead and view Roger today. And underneath subscriptions, this is where you can then play around with, no, I'm sorry. I am thinking about the alerts. I'm just getting ahead of myself. I do apologize. So you can actually come underneath staff rates, and permissions. And then as you click into a specific individual, you can take a look at their specific permission set. So looking at him, I can now see that he has full permissions. Again, I can move him to a different permission set if I want, or I can come in and just make some changes. So to kind of just give you an idea of some changes I'm going to make, I have actually pulled up Roger's login just on a separate viewable page here. So you're going to see that Roger right now has the ability to see absolutely everything. We have every single module within the system available to him. If we were to dive into the financials, he would be able to see everything. Something else I also like to point out is with the add options, and we have this AE dropdown, you're going to be able to see everyone that is allowed to be labeled as an AE in the system, including Roger So. And again, in my example, I'm going to remove him from this so that this does not appear. The AE dropdown is actually quite unique because there is quite a bit of functionality attached to it in regards to reporting and items like that. So This is actually a list that we can control so that only those individuals that are account executives at your agency or who would be responsible for ensuring that a piece of work is completed is only available in this list. You know, this works for a lot of our agencies that are maybe 30 users or over, and we're really needing to control that and know who's in this dropdown rather than one of the dropdowns that has everybody's name within it. So right now we can see that Roger has absolutely everything, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a change to Roger. So within these permissions, I'm going to just kind of mess with some things because this is a regularly asked question just in regards to this main navigation bar here. This happens actually more often than people would think, where they come in and they're thinking more of removing the actual ability to say, they're looking at this and they're like, you know what, I just don't want them to be able to do any invoicing. So we can come in here and we can remove that. Or actually they'll come in and they'll accidentally uncheck all of them. So when that happens, you'll actually see that right now Roger can't view anything. However, he still has functionality for everything within the system, which is super, it's kind of weird. So we're going to go ahead and submit that. Now, what we've noticed is this notice has popped up for me because of this sort of change that I have made to Roger. It's removing him from that set and putting him into his own unique permission set, which isn't being saved anywhere. So if you were to make changes, it ultimately would, you wouldn't be able to apply that set knowing that someone else would also be able to have the same permissions as Roger as well. So for today, I'm going to click OK, but if you ever have this pop up, it would just be good for you to take note, okay, is this change that I'm making to Roger something that I want done universally to everyone that has the same access points as him, or is it really something that is unique to that user that you want to keep unique to that user? So that's kind of just a important key piece thing that I'll throw out there. Okay, awesome. Now, this has been saved successfully, so I'm just going to choose to refresh Roger's page over here and pull it back over. Now, what you can see, again, with Roger's page, since we only removed those viewable pieces, it's now gone up here. His entire module bar has disappeared, which of course really gets in the way of a lot of navigating. However, we can still see that he can still see jobs, so if he actually wanted to click in here, oh, doesn't have the permission to view jobs, so he can't actually go in. So again, really important. That is sort of a weird one that really can mess with people, and our support team gets a lot of questions on it, especially since maybe if you've accidentally done it to yourself and you can no longer access that admin section to be able to adjust it yourself as well. So obviously, if you ever get yourself into one of these situations, please reach out to our support team or your primes within your agency. They will know how to update this. This is something we do try to touch on during onboarding to avoid kind of weird breakdowns in scenarios like this. So to fix this, I would then just come in, and of course we would check off that checkbox to give him back all of his options here. Now again, something you're going to notice, this permission set didn't change back to that permission set. So if you wanted to move him back onto the permission set, it would be about coming in here and actually choosing that option. So I'm actually going to move him over to a different set this time, which is called All But AE. So what this is doing is this is giving him all those permissions, except for, remember when we were looking at that AE dropdown earlier, Roger's name was in there. He will no longer be in there because of this one permission underneath administrator. And what we have is this admin AE, and this is saying staff will appear as an account executive option throughout function point. So right now, Roger's never actually going to be responsible for any pieces of work at that level, so he does not need to have that permission. So if I go ahead and submit that, we are now going to be able to see underneath that add option again, underneath AE, that Roger's name is now gone from this. So again, just a really good permission for you to sort of remember so that if we do need to kind of monitor and control that, we can certainly do that. Now, something that I know is kind of interesting is how when we are looking at that AE option, it lives underneath the administrator section of the permission sets. So there are quite a few functions within that administrator set. I know that I talk to a lot of people and they're like, well, underneath administrator, I don't want them to have any of those abilities within there. The thing is that this isn't necessarily allowing them to log into the administrator area in the system, so up through the top bar here. It's really just kind of digging into maybe some additional financial information that we might want staff to be able to have access to, but and so we just kind of grouped some of those things underneath the title of administrator. So again, something like that admin AE, that is labeled underneath this area, but of course isn't, it's not necessarily like an admin function underneath the admin area in function point. It's just sort of a general, this would be a setting that we would want to turn on or off. And that, of course, would be the same with maybe adding external expenses or internal expenses. Those are actually living in those are living in the back end of the system. But there is a really good financial one that I always like to point out, which is these show estimate, actuals, and invoice, and of course the rates themselves. This is another really frequently asked question by some agencies around when you're looking at the job and looking at that financials page and making sure that they can still see everything. So these, I find, are almost some pretty core functions when it comes to the finance within function point. So, you know, if you ever come into your estimate, maybe we'll do this move letter. And we come underneath those services. And right now what we see is, of course, those estimated amounts. Actually, you know what? This is not a good example. Let's go under our corporate website. This is always a good one. We're going to go underneath those job details and underneath this financials page. This is where we're going to have that financials overview of your estimated amounts, your actual amounts, and of course that variance and invoice. So those permissions that I was just pointing out are huge towards actually showing up here. And then there's a different section that will show this cost or not. So of course with those that is definitely a really big piece there when it comes to salary information. Do not worry, that is something we can control to ensure that only you know, C-suites or anyone at a higher management level would be able to see costs, but your end users or people that really just need to be time tracking won't be able to see that. Yelena, I realized I've just kind of been rambling on. Have any questions come in that you feel like we should touch on screen, or anything that I'm missing?
No, not for now. I'm just listening and enjoying.
Okay, awesome to hear it. Yeah, doesn't look like we have really had many questions come through so far. So again, everyone, don't hesitate to send in your questions. We want to hear them as they come in. Okay, great. So again, those few main permission items, of course, are so key when it comes to the financial sections of the area, and those are underneath administrator. I always like to scroll through this slowly so I don't accidentally miss it because it's a big section, and it's those show actual, show estimated, show invoice, and then show the rates. So if you're not showing the rates, ultimately we can't then calculate those actuals and estimated amounts for you because we don't know what that rate is to apply against those. Great. Awesome. Now, of course, again, that other key piece, which is the cost information, that has been given its own section because of its sensitivity, and that's underneath salary and wage info here. So at any point, we could actually come in and change that. Let's actually look at what permission set I personally am on. It should be full permissions. Give all that to me. So looking at my own permissions, we can actually come underneath here under that salary wage info, and I can make sure I remove that. We'll submit that. And then what we would do is, again, coming underneath that job, you'll now see that since I removed that underneath this financials tab, where that cost column was is now gone. Great. So those, of course, are the main financial pieces that everyone wants to be aware of. Now, there are a couple of things that have recently come to my attention that live within the system. And, well, actually, one was a pretty big release that we did not too long ago, and that is around our subscription management. So with the subscription management, you now actually have the ability to add additional licenses to your account, as well as manage your credit card that's available to you directly in there. Now, that permission lives underneath the administrator section as well, and that is underneath admin subscription management. So you can allow staff to view and manage that FP subscription, or even just allow them to view it underneath the admin section as well. So I'm going to add in those features there when we submit that. And this I would probably recommend kind of keeping in within just sort of like primes, or maybe your head of finance, who would be sort of responsible for making sure, that credit card is secure, and we can ensure we have followed all the proper security measures to ensure that all of your credit cards are safe. It's a simple submission sort of area. It's not necessarily showing the credit card specifically. But underneath that now we have the admin system setup, and you'll now see that the subscription management is available there for you to go and take a look at. Yelena, I know you get a lot of questions on this one. Is there anything you'd want to add related to the subscription management piece, or did I cover it enough?
I believe you covered. Just to additionally emphasize that these are not added automatically to admin sets, because we just like to leave to people to decide who needs to manage this and who they want to see this, as you said, due to credit card information. So yeah, this is just, if you have a new administrator, make sure that they have these added if they need them.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Yelena. And when we released this feature, I believe it was around 4 to 6 months ago, we didn't automatically just release it to everybody. We did have discussions with individuals that maybe needed to be more aware of it, so that they had the choice of turning it on themselves. Again, it is a pretty key piece of your accounting, and we didn't want to necessarily just release it. So if there are any questions around this, or you would like some assistance in ensuring that you have it, or that other people don't have it, again, don't hesitate to reach out to the success team to take a look. Okay, now this is kind of an odd one that I'm about to walk you through. So it has recently, well, actually, it came to my attention during the last time we did this webinar, and so I think it's actually kind of important to still touch on. You may give your staff full permissions to the system. Like, absolutely, they can go wild. They can work within the back end, adding in different services and expenses. They can organize that within service groups. They can manage different rates. But what we still want to withhold from them, again, is that salary and wage information. I recognize that this is quite a big piece within Function Point. So if you are removing that, what I would recommend is that there is a permission that allows you to manage and manipulate permissions or permission sets within Function Point. So, I know that we all trust everyone that we work with, but of course there is always the occasion where there's a cheeky individual within your agency who maybe they've figured out that they can actually update their own permission sets so that they can see that cost information. So what I would recommend doing is, again, you can give them all the permissions that you want so that they have full reign of the system, but maybe what you want to do is actually control this admin manage permission sets or updating permissions. Actually remove these two options so that, again, they can really do anything that they need within the system, but as of right now, they would never be able to update their own permission sets or anyone else's permission sets. And of course, it's still hiding that cost information for you. So it's just kind of like a bit of an odd piece, but I think it's always something that's kind of good to touch on when we have the opportunity. Okay, great. So that was everything I really wanted to make sure I touched on when it came to permissions within Function Point. Are there any questions, concerns? Again, Yelena, I'm just going to check in with you one more time.
No questions for now. Seems we are good to go to alerts.
Okay, awesome. I also love it. Every time I check in with you, it gives me a second to have a quick sip of water. As much as I'm used to talking all day, it does dry out the mouth, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Great. So next we're going to dive into is, of course, the alerts within Function Point. Now, alerts are, well, they're a huge thing, and a lot of agencies, when they're first coming on board with us, what they are really interested in is, of course, the actions and the alerts that we can start creating within Function Point to help streamline their processes. Now, when I'm having these conversations with people, I always like to kind of say, let's take a step back. Let's not put too many alerts in there right away, because ultimately, if you do too many, people are going to receive too many, and therefore they're going to start ignoring them. So that is always a bit of a warning piece that I like to say. Something else that I always like to kind of talk about, and this is more just from a project management side of things, is that alerts are great, but if there is no action that can come out of that alert, then sometimes I wonder what the point of the alert was. So that's kind of a rule that I always like to sort of encourage people to think about. Before I set this alert for, say, someone within my team, is there actually an action or something that they could do following that alert? So let's always make sure that as we're kind of going through this, that we're thinking about that and making sure that we're not overwhelming people just with a ton of things that in the end they're going to ignore. So again, with alerts, we have the ability of creating sets versus managing that by an individual. So with those sets, again, that can be based off of their role, their functionality. If you're wanting to control that, we can definitely do that. Something that if you wanted to just create some alert sets, again, thinking based off of maybe for my designers, these are sort of the alerts I'd want versus account executives and the alerts they would want, we can come in and create those sets. And it's the exact same setup as those permission sets as well. You would be able to come in, choose that alert list, and be able to make those adjustments as you need. So maybe for our studio team, studio staff, I know that they have quite a few alerts set up in here. You'll then be able to come through and actually see all the different alerts that they have available to them and who it is that might be attached to it. So right now we actually don't have any studio staff that have any alerts, or at least that aren't on this alert set. But I've been working and I've been creating my now perfect alert set that I would now want to apply to anyone that would be relevant to this. And we can do that by just coming in and, of course, applying them to all of them and submitting that. But, of course, it's still good to come and take a look at everything. So really take a look through all these different options. There is quite a bit. I'm going to pull up the job option here to kind of get started, because there is a few complexities that come with the alerts that are a little bit different than the permissions. First of all, of course, being when we're sending those alerts, we can either send it as an alert, which would have it appear as a bell up, as a red dot with the bell up here, or send it as an email. So that would come just directly to their email. Of course, please make sure that everyone that no reply at Function Point is on your whitelist with your email provider, so that we can make sure that they would receive their emails. I know that is something that can regularly come in. So just making sure that you've actually allowed us to come through to your email. And of course, just so if you ever have questions for us, we can make sure that we can answer them and that you receive those responses too. Now, what you're going to notice is that with this new job, there's also this if statement that we can add in. So if I am a job contact. Now, depending on your role, there might be some, again, different complexities that you're looking for based off this alert. So you may be at a higher level and you're actually wanting to know every single time a new job is being added. In that case, I would leave this blank, and that would make sure that you receive absolutely an alert every single time a new job is created. Now, however, if you are, say, an account executive and you're really just wanting to know when it's one that you need to be aware of, you can filter by if I am a job contact. So this would then only send you an alert if you are labeled as a job contact on that job as it is created. So again, just a pretty good if statement that's available there for you. You can even choose that you just want in-system alerts and not get emails. Lots of little pieces that are available. There are also a few more options, and I'm going to dive into the task section for this, because there's a few more if statements in here. So say with a task assigned, again, if you want them to receive absolutely every single time a task is assigned within the system, just leave that blank. Don't apply any of the if statements so that they receive everything. Now, you may want to filter by if the task is assigned to me, so that only you will receive that alert when that task is assigned to you directly. That is a pretty big one, and probably the most commonly used if statement that I see. Of course, there's always a couple more, say if the task is assigned to your role. So if you have roles set up within your system so that, say, all of your creatives live underneath the team of creative, or all of your project managers live underneath your project management piece, we can, again, assign tasks at the role level. And so you may want to apply this if statement. So if the task is assigned to that role, you are also notified for that. So again, just a good one to kind of think of. And then of course that if you're a job contact as well. So maybe again, if you're that AE and in a certain situation, you're wanting to know about all tasks being assigned, we could make sure that you would be aware of all tasks being assigned that are related to that job for you. Great. Okay. So again, lots of different pieces in there. And those are really kind of the main items around the alerts that I wanted to make sure I touched on. You know, with our support team, they get a lot of questions where people are constantly making changes to alerts, and they're wondering why maybe the alerts aren't being actioned right at that time. So anytime you make a change, make sure you just take a minute. The system, of course, it is technology. It'll just need a minute to make sure that it is reading everything correctly. If you are setting up alerts after, say, you know, in a scenario, we've created a task, we've assigned it out. Of course, that individual didn't receive an alert that task was assigned to them because they didn't have that alert. If you go in and then assign that alert to them to receive when a task is assigned, it's not going to work retroactively. It's not going to then alert them of the last X number of tasks that were assigned to them before that date. It's only going to work for tasks that are then assigned to them moving forward. So that's just a really important thing to know. And of course, in the same sort of scenario where maybe we have given someone too many alerts, and then we've gone and removed those alerts, they already in the queue, say for any action that has already been triggered within the system. So they still may receive a couple more alerts depending on how many you had previously assigned to them. That just needs to run its course and finish its trigger. Of course, if you notice that too many or they are not working correctly, again, please reach out to either the success or the support team, and we can, of course, dive into that in greater detail for you to make sure that it's not a technical bug. But yeah, that's something that I always kind of recommend. Give it a minute to make sure that everything has, you know, just completed registering within the system. Everything's pretty fast. Usually, but again, there may just be times where if you've created that alert post assigning a task, that could be something that's causing that, or of course, removing alerts after creating tasks, they will still, of course, receive some of those alerts. Yeah, so, and you know, always do a review of your alerts, always do a review of your permissions. Make sure people are where they need to be. If you find that you're constantly going back and be like, oh, what is it that Roger has? Because it's perfect. It would be great for Christine, who's about to come join us. Turn those into sets. Turn those into sets so that it's easy to assign them as needed to anyone that's maybe new or anyone within the agency that maybe needs more access. It will make your life easier to be able to manage your people and not need to go and click through every single box every time you bring on a new staff member. All right, that was really everything I wanted to touch on today. Yelena, again, you are my support queen. Is there anything that I am forgetting that you feel I should make sure I touch on today before we sign off?
Maybe we should briefly touch on the new pinged note alert. I know we did that release some time ago, but for anybody who maybe missed out, that's a useful one.
The new pinned notes alert. Oh, you mean when a note is pinned to their dashboard?
Yes, yes.
Okay. that one's new. I've always just thought that that was there. I might actually need you to walk me through that one. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that release.
Well, recently we basically or actually added the if I'm selected as a recipient of a pin note under the new note. It was given previously as a separate alert, which wasn't actually connecting properly to all the pin notes. So we did some enhancements here. So actually, if you, let's say, do a note and pin it to specific staff dashboard, and they have this box checked off, only them will receive the alert. Similarly to that goes for the new note comment. If you want just people who are pinned on the note to receive the comments, you can narrow it down so nobody else will receive, because there may be some sensitive information you don't want everybody to see in the notes or in the comments.
Okay, yes. Okay, you taught me something today. This is absolutely great. Thank you so much for joining us today, Yelena. Yeah, so again, everyone, I know that the pin notes feature is really great, and it's really widely used now amongst a lot of our agencies. So if with the notes you are wanting to make sure that people are alerted on that, and maybe with the notes you're only wanting them to be alerted if they're actually directly pinned to a note, make sure that you apply these if statements for yourself so that that can be controlled. And of course, with the comment, that's actually something that I have recently even discussed with another agency around they actually weren't receiving alerts when a comment was made on a note, and now I'm going to have to call them. I'm going to call them and make sure that they have that one set up so that that could actually solve the problem. So thank you, Yelena, so much for joining me today. This has been great and really informative and educational even for myself.
Teamwork.
I love it. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Again, if there are any questions as you're sort of filtering out, we'll stay on the line for another couple of minutes and answer those as we go. Again, if there are any questions that come up after the fact, do not hesitate to email our successor support team at success@functionpoint.com or support@functionpoint.com. We are here to make sure that you are supported and enabled and successful in the system. So we look forward to chatting with you. And yeah, again, any new topics that anyone wants to hear for upcoming series, please reach out to me and the success team. I want to hear them. I want some new ideas, and you guys are the ones that are really, although we're in the system every day, you guys are the ones that are really in the system every day. So please let me know what you'd like to see. Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you,
Yelena.
everyone.